So I present you with the Seraphim Space Telescope. So this is one of the secret projects that I wanted to work on, and I got it done. And let's say, you know, story-wise, that this was finally made available through the process of R&D. So our Kerbal scientists, you know, finally managed to get this sucker out, and it's pretty sick. So I'm using two different servos. So this one is a rotating servo, and this one is a 90-degree servo. So it would go this way, and the other one will go in a circle. You'll see that when we finally get it working. Then you have the actual, you know, telescope on the top. It's got its camera way in there. There's a bigger version of it, which is way cooler looking. However, we're not going for the bigger version, at least at the moment. I do have MechJeb on it. That's for things that I'll do in the future with it. And it uses a probe body. Underneath the probe body, there is a SAS unit, or a, more specifically, the Advanced Inline Stabilizer. I have 4 RCS jets. I just realized that I don't have RCS fuel. No, there it is. RCS fuel is underneath all of the battery packs. Batteries are important for this thing. It's going to be using a lot of energy. I have 2 data hard drives that come from the same mod that uses the space telescope anyways. Then we have a small engine and a small fuel tank there with some solar panels. And by some, I mean quite a bit. This thing is designed to go up into space and stay up in space until we eventually want to recover it, which maybe later down the line, may not be. I have servo controls set up on my keyboard so I can control it in space more accurately. So this thing is going to be totally awesome when we finally get it up. However, our Kerbal scientists are specifically looking for a launch window here. So we're not going to launch this thing just yet. In fact, in the meantime, I'm going to show you another project I've been working on. So on a side note, I went and did a ton of the contracts, which is why I have a lot of science. Let me talk about that for a second. I didn't realize that some of these contracts are ridiculous. Like, where is it? This one. No, this one? This one. This. There's one of them here. Hold on. This one, yeah. So plant flag on Minmus is a huge one, and so is, I thought there was another one here. Could be just, oh, I may have oh, Explorer Ike has it. So as you see, because of the way that we set up how our science is being converted from our reputation and from our money, well, you could see that this one mission would get me 2,494 science, and I would get 500 science in advance. Then you have things like this one where it gives me 20 science in advance, but this one would give me 303, and it's ridiculous. The Minmus one was 1,188. I have one right now that gives me 5,397, and all I have to do is test this engine in the atmosphere. Now, I did a lot of little ones. You could see a couple of them here. So, because actually, this is all that I did. You could see them all in advance. This one gave me 2,433 to test the atomic rocket. It actually gave me the rocket to test, too, so I didn't have to purchase the entry into that. That one gave me 432. This one gave me 141. This one gave me 31, and that one gave me 109, and then plus all the advanced stuff. And basically, it got me a lot of money. Now, that was just me playing the game to set up this next part. So none of that actually happened. What really happened was that the Kerbal government, the KGA, the Kerbal Governing Agency is what they call themselves. It's just like the governing body for the entire planet, right? Remember how I said at the beginning is in our world here, basically it's just one governing body for the entire planet. There's not really war or anything that happens. It's a pretty peaceful planet. You can kind of think of it more as like a like an insurgency thing. There's terrorists that, you know, want to ruin people's lives, but for the most part, there aren't any major wars that happen in this world that we have set up. So basically, the KGA know that Project Destiny is, you know, it's under the governing body. Sure, it's not necessarily a full government project, but it is part of the government, and the governing body doesn't necessarily use militaristic means because there are no wars. However, it does have military vehicles in order to I guess govern the planet. Like if there's anything with terrorists or any weird things that may happen where, you know, just in case the planet did split into two different factions, I mean, it could happen, especially with the two factions that we have going at each other right now, the Snethians and the Naturians. Then they would need something to enforce that government, right? So there's two things. The first is the Enforcer, and the second is the Trident. Actually, I should flip that around. The first is the Trident, the second is the Enforcer. So let me show you this thing. So the KGA basically said, hey, the Project Destiny people, we know you need more money, so we're going to freelance you guys out to create us new aircraft. So this is, and the governing body does keep up their militaristic craft. They're not super advanced, but they are pretty advanced, just in case, you know, they don't want to have stuff that is years behind what any insurgency might be able to get themselves. So they keep their fleet up to date with all of their tanks and aircraft and stuff. It's not a big military, but it is a reasonably advanced one. And this is one of the planes that it made. So this is a non-militaristic version. This is the Trident, and it didn't load it properly. It loaded it as the X-22V1, but that is the Trident. There we go. Save. Now, the Trident basically is just using all of these new parts that we got in 2.5, except for a few things. So we have some of the landing gear from B9. We have the air intakes from B9, a nose cone from B9, which actually is an atmospheric scientific package. And then it's loaded out, so it's got all of this, all of these new parts. So, you know, like this new cockpit and a few other things. I could have done this cockpit, but it looked funny. I mean, it looks kind of funny now, but it's really balanced. This sucker flies so well. I don't know how I managed to create something so good, but it is really good. So we're going to take the oxidizer out of that, and you'll see that the liquid fueled, it goes throughout the entire body, even the nose. And if we look at the center of mass to the center of thrust, we can actually pull back this a bit as well. And that gives us, or not center of thrust, but the center of lift. And that gives us a pretty balanced aircraft. It's got these awesome engines and everything, and it's just, overall it flies really, really well. So let's show you the Trident real quick. Now the Trident in particular, it's meant as a civilian thing. It's yes, it was contracted by the government, but the government is gonna then sell these to civilian people, you know, airliners and stuff that do commercial flight, which is an important thing, and especially because it's under one governing body across the entire world, so people need to get around, right? They need to visit family and whatnot. This thing lifts off incredibly well. It's a very stable aircraft. And the entire idea of this aircraft, at least, you know, the reason why this one was designed, was just so that different agencies will be able to use this thing in a non-militaristic fashion and just be able to get around, explore. It's a pretty nice aircraft. People can fit it out to do whatever they want. Now, this is also a way for the government to make money, because they can contract Project Destiny to create these, and then the government can then sell them. So it's a cool little system they have going on. As you can see, it flies just really, really well. Like, I can flip around, and the only time that it really gets unstable is right there when you saw where you just kind of pull too much G's, basically. But overall, I really like this aircraft. I think it was designed fairly well when I got it. I had a few iterations of it, and I think it works reasonably well. Honestly, I was inspired from the new aircraft parts that were added in 2.5, so I wanted to try them out. So let's flip back around. Actually, I'm not even going to worry about landing this thing. Let's just revert. Probably should have reverted to the hangar, so let's do that. And I'll show you the Enforcer. Now, the Enforcer is basically the same aircraft, as you will see here in a second. It's probably going to load it as something else. Yep. Enforcer. There we go. It's the way that I import it from my test save that I have. So this thing is basically the exact same, except it has a payload. This is a militaristic vehicle. This is meant to enforce, as it's now, aptly named, enforce the ruling body of the Kerbal government. If there's anything that ever happens, they have an aircraft that can enforce the law, basically. And it does a very good job of that. It features a fairly powerful bomb. This bomb is kind of a cluster bomb. I accidentally made it a cluster bomb, and I will show you exactly what it does. We'll test launch it. But the reason why I made these is to explain some of the... there it goes. This one's got a bit more weight on it, I should probably add. The reason why I made these is to explain some of the money and science that I'm getting from doing, on a off-recording basis, some of these really boring missions that you have to do, or contracts, in order to get more money, because some of the stuff that we're going to be making here shortly is very, 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 very expensive, and I needed the extra money to be able to do that, so I set it up properly. So I'm going to test this out. I have the bomb bay doors, which is basically just a little thing it's flipped upside down, so it's kind of a clever way of doing it. So I have that set to an action group, so I can open and close it with 2, which is really nice. And the bomb itself, all I do is hit space, and it will hit the next one, and we'll test the bomb out. So good. So there's a couple ways that I can go about messing with that, and let's stop. I've attempted on several different times to blow up the Space Center with it, and it works really, really well. I also have air brakes on these things just to slow it down, and it's a really good aircraft. I'm actually surprised I managed to make something so, durable, actually, I think is a good word for it. No, just something so good. And if I were to do a good landing, it would land incredibly well. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to make these available for you guys to use. Except I'm going to take off any parts that are from the mods. So, for example, I have B9 gear, B9 air brakes, B9 intakes, and stuff like that. And instead, I'm going to put on pieces that are just all standard, and then I will put it in the description below, and you can download the Trident and the Enforcer, both of them. And both of them will work without mods and should be able to fly just as well. So there you go. That's kind of a cool little thing that I had in mind, just to, show you guys what you could do with update 2.5 as far as aircraft. I'd have a version that I haven't put in this save yet that does have the capabilities of going into space, but at the moment, the one that I'm using is just an atmospheric aircraft, and I think it works quite well. So let's go back. So in the meantime, when we were creating the telescope, like I said, the government contracted Project Destiny to do that. In the process, they earned a lot more money. You can look at the money I had in the last episode compared to this one. And I earned a lot of science. So the only thing that I had like 5,000. So I had to purchase this, which I didn't have. And then I had to purchase this, which was 1,000 science, and I didn't have this either. But that gave me the turbofan engines that I needed in order to do that. So now I'm stuck with 3,444 science. I had about... it was like 400 or something like that when I last left off. So we're just going to pick up a ton of stuff here. We're just going to clean house now that we have 300 science. And then we're going to launch our telescope. There's certain things that I wanted, but I don't quite remember where they were. Okay, that's part of them. That's the other part. Okay, so I already had most of the stuff that I needed. We'll just research as we go here. Just research the entire line. Why not? We have enough science to do it. And we're going to have even more here. Actually, in the next 2 episodes, you'll see we'll have a ton of science because of our telescope. It is really, 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 really good. We'll get those, and let's just buy it all. We have 1,300 science left. I could just, purchase one thing. An electromagnet? What the heck is that? Huh. An electromagnet is perfect for grabbing heavy objects without a connector or docking port. Can be mounted on a winch or hook support. Interesting. Is there anything in particular that I want here? Probably those. Those are good. Those will be nice for upcoming missions. Don't really need any of those. And that battery would be nice to have. So maybe we'll go with that. I had a probe core. Remote guidance unit. Oh, with this drone core, you can actually make that same aircraft I had, but make it unmanned, which is a really cool way of doing it. I've tested it out. It works really, really well. Let's just purchase these, because why not? What would that get us? Ooh, that gets us the reactor. Whew, that reactor, though. Cool. Let's launch the Seraphim. Now, I don't have any stabilizers to launch with, but for the most part, this thing is pretty stable to begin with. Starts with 2 boosters. The booster stage gets me quite high before I have to move on to the middle stage. Under the fairing is obviously the telescope, and we will have more than enough fuel to get this up. I've tested it, and overall, flies incredibly well. And it's really easy to get into orbit, believe it or not. I'm kind of happy with the fact that, that I managed to... As it's wobbling back and forth, I managed to create a stable launch system for this satellite, because in the past I've had issues launching this exact same satellite. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about how the Kerbal governing body works, because I wanted to elaborate on that, but I did want to actually get to some things that we were really needing to do, as opposed to flying around in a cool plane, regardless of it being a cool plane. Don't blow up. Ooh, happens almost every time. It did take off my wings, though. So the governing body really needed those aircraft for its current generation of fleet. However, I should probably mention that it's not the only aircraft that are in development, and the aircraft coming up next are definitely able to go into orbit and come back down. Maybe they're militaristic in nature, maybe they're not, but I can tell you for a fact that this, you know, I guess telescope, it is a space telescope. However, it's also being used to monitor the planet. Spoilers. That's the secondary part to this thing. Because going to the moon so many times has really sparked the interest of those Naturians. They're getting a little antsy with how we're doing things, and I don't blame them. To be honest, I don't necessarily blame them, because they really didn't want to go to the moon in the first place, and to spend so much money going to the moon several different times, they're not too happy with the current situation at Project Destiny. They actually have a new agenda that they believe that they could use Project Destiny to create new types of, you know, scientific equipment that can be used on Kerbal, you know, such as using that money to increase the health capabilities, the healthcare capabilities within the planet. So there's all this other stuff that's happening politically, and the Kerbal government is, well, as I said before, is primarily made up of Cenethians, and the higher-ups definitely want to monitor the planet in a much greater degree. So what they're going to do is this, while this is going up to take, you know, awesome pictures of planets and moons and all of these other really cool things, they are also using it as a spy satellite, which that's, you know, it's a double whammy. Will the Naturians ever figure out that this is a spy satellite? I don't know. We don't know. We'll obviously find out, but we do know that the Trident, the aircraft, is being sold to private investors and private people who just want awesome aircraft. So potentially the Naturians could get their hands on those and militarize them in their own special way. It doesn't come with a bomb bay door, so they'd have to come up with other means of delivery system as far as weapons are concerned. But the Kerbal government doesn't necessarily think that that's what they're going to do. However, they're definitely going to keep an eye on them with this satellite. So it's kind of like a double whammy. They're giving us an amazing aircraft system that can be used for bad, potentially, But, you know, the Kerbal government's making enough money now that they can send satellites up that can keep an eye on people that may have nefarious intentions for the aircraft that they just got made by Project Destiny. All right, let's finish our orbit. We're going to get up to about 500,000 meters, and then we will probably start looking around our solar system a bit.